This story begins in the city of Jerusalem, a city filled with people who loved God and followed His ways. A king named Jehoiakim ruled over this land. He was the son of the good king Josiah. But King Jehoiakim was not always a good king. He did not listen to God's prophets, and he did not take care of his people as he should have. In this bustling city, there lived 4 young boys named Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah.
Not this time, Azariah. I am going to win today.
They belonged to the tribe of Judah. They were the best of friends. They studied together and learned the ways of God. Daniel was the oldest and wisest among them. He loved to read the scriptures and pray to God every day. Hananiah was brave and kind-hearted, always standing up for what was right. Mishael was clever and quick-thinking, coming up with creative solutions to problems. Azariah was gentle and compassionate, often caring for those in need. Meanwhile, far away in the mighty city of Babylon, there was a powerful king named Nebuchadnezzar. He ruled over a vast empire, and he still wanted to conquer even more lands. One day, King Nebuchadnezzar set his eyes on the beautiful city of Jerusalem.
I think it's time for us to capture Jerusalem.
Great king,
said Ashpenaz, one of Nebuchadnezzar's advisors, bowing before him.
Jerusalem stands as a symbol of defiance against your rule. Its king, Jehoiakim, dares to resist your authority.
Nebuchadnezzar's eyes flashed with determination.
I will not tolerate such insolence. Prepare the troops. We march on Jerusalem.
The king and his generals gathered the army and marched towards Jerusalem ready to attack. When King Jehoiakim heard that the Babylonian army was coming, he was afraid. He knew that his army was not strong enough to defeat them. So instead of trusting in God and asking for his help, King Jehoiakim made a foolish decision. He decided to surrender to King Nebuchadnezzar without a fight.
Let the Babylonians take whatever they want, as long as they don't hurt us,
King Jehoiakim told his people. As the Babylonian army approached Jerusalem, King Jehoiakim met with Nebuchadnezzar at the city gates. Nebuchadnezzar looked around at the city, his eyes gleaming with greed.
Surrender now, King Jehoiakim, and I will spare your city from destruction. But make no mistake, Jerusalem will be part of my empire.
King Jehoiakim bowed his head in defeat.
I surrender, great king. Spare my people, and I will submit to your rule.
Nebuchadnezzar nodded, satisfied.
Very well. Bring me the treasures of your city, and I will leave your people unharmed.
The people of Jerusalem were terrified as they watched their homes being looted and their city being destroyed. They cried out to God for help, but it seemed like He was not listening. The Babylonians destroyed the villages and the temples were looted. Jehoiakim was taken captive by King Nebuchadnezzar, who put him in chains and carted him off to Babylon. The king also ordered Ashpenaz, the chief official, to select from among the Israelite exiles some young men of the royal families. They had to be handsome, intelligent, well-trained, quick to learn, for they were to serve in the royal court. One day, Daniel and the boys were playing in the fields outside the city when they heard a commotion. People were running and shouting, and smoke rose in the distance.
What's happening?
I don't know, but we should go and see.
They raced back to the city and found it in chaos. The mighty army of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had attacked Jerusalem and was laying siege to the city.
We have to warn our families.
The boys rushed to their homes, but it was too late. The Babylonian soldiers were everywhere, capturing people and dragging them away from their homes.
We have to hide.
Daniel said, his voice trembling with fear. They found a secret hiding place in the cellar of Daniel's house, where they waited anxiously as the sounds of battle echoed outside. Days passed, and the city fell to the Babylonians. Eventually, the soldiers came to Daniel's house and found the boys hiding.
What is the name of your tribe?
We belong to the tribe of Judah.
Interesting. I see you are from noble families. I am going to give you different names. From today, you will be called Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You will start serving at the king's palace.
The soldiers led the boys away from Jerusalem and onto a long road that led to Babylon, the great city of their enemies. The journey to Babylon was long and arduous. The boys, along with their captives, walked for days through dusty roads and rugged terrain.
We must stay strong.
Daniel encouraged his friends, wiping the sweat from his brow.
God is with us, even in this difficult journey.
Shadrach nodded, his face determined.
We will endure, Daniel. We must.
As they journeyed, they saw the devastation left behind in the wake of the Babylonian army. Villages lay in ruins, and fields were trampled underfoot. The cries of the women and kids echoed in the air. Despite the hardships, the boys clung to their faith, finding strength in their friendship and their trust in God. As they finally approached the towering walls of Babylon, they knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, they would face them together. Little did they know, their journey was just beginning, and the trials they would face in Babylon would test their courage and their faith like never before. Inside the city, they were taken to the palace, where they were presented before the king himself.
Great King, these are the captives from Judah, including their leader, Belteshazzar.
My name is Belteshazzar, and they are my friends, Your Majesty.
The king wanted the smartest and healthiest young men to serve in his palace, so he chose Daniel and his friends. In Babylon, Daniel and his friends were taught the language and customs of the Babylonians. As seen in the next episodes, Daniel and his friends became very wise and understanding, even more so than all the other wise men in the kingdom. Several incidents occurred at the palace, which made the king believe in Daniel and his prophecies. One of them was when the king wanted them to eat the royal food and wine from his table. But Daniel and his friends believed in eating only the food that God wanted them to eat, which was simple and healthy. After 10 days, Daniel and his friends looked healthier and stronger than all the other young men. Daniel was given this special ability to understand visions and dreams. Because of their wisdom and abilities, Daniel and his friends were given important positions in the king's palace. They stayed true to their faith, and God protected them and helped them in many ways during their time in Babylon. This is a story from the early years of Jesus' life after his miraculous birth in Bethlehem. Jesus' parents, Joseph and Mary, took Jesus to live in a town called Nazareth. He had a happy childhood filled with love, hard work, and devotion to God. Jesus' father, Joseph, was a carpenter who worked with wood, and from a young age, Jesus would help his father with his work. Joseph would cut wood for houses and make wooden furniture for the people of Nazareth. And as the oldest child of his family, the young Jesus worked hard to help his father as much as he could. Joseph, Mary, and Jesus were very close and loved each other very much. They were also very strong in their faith. Joseph and Mary were both very devoted to the Word of God and made sure to raise their children to keep their faith and observe all the important rituals and holidays that honor God. In fact, in show of their devotion to God, each year Joseph and Mary would travel to Jerusalem to celebrate the festival of Passover, also known as the Festival of the Unleavened Bread. This journey was very important to them, as in the holy city of Jerusalem, they would visit the great temple and make an offering to God to show him their devotion. One day, as the festival of Passover was soon approaching, Joseph and Mary gathered the children to tell them that they would soon be heading to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage.
Children, the festival of Passover is coming soon. You know that me and your mother travel every year to visit the temple in Jerusalem. This year we will go together.
And was excited that he would get to see the holy city of Jerusalem and make an offering in the great temple.
Really? You will take us all the way to Jerusalem?
Yes, my dear. Now that you are 12 years old, we think it is time that we all go together on this journey and share our devotion to God as a family.
And so, the family began to prepare for the journey to Jerusalem, which would take several days. Not only did Jesus have many brothers and sisters, but the rest of his family was also large, and they were very close to one another. His aunts, uncles, and cousins, as well as several family friends, were all going to join the family on the pilgrimage to the temple. They all gathered at Mary and Joseph's home and set out on their holy journey. After their days of travel through the hills and desert of Israel, Jesus and his family finally arrived in the holy city of Jerusalem. Jesus could see that many others had joined for the festival of Passover, as the streets were filled with other pilgrims, all there to show their devotion to God.
Before we visit the temple, we must buy some offerings to give to God to show our devotion.
The family were to buy a lamb for sacrifice and fruits and vegetables to give to the temple.
We will take this lamb. Children, pick some offerings to give to the Lord.
And so, the children gathered baskets of fruits and vegetables to take to the temple. Joseph paid the market vendor, and the family was ready to make their way to the temple. Knowing that Jesus was a good and responsible boy, Joseph asked him to look after the lamb as they made their way through Jerusalem to the temple.
Jesus, why don't you look after the lamb?
All right.
And so, off they went to the temple. When the family arrived at the temple, they made their way to the high priest to receive a blessing and show their devotion. Joseph was proud to introduce the high priest to Jesus.
And who do we have here?
The high priest asked curiously, looking at young Jesus. Joseph answered,
This is my boy, Jesus.
Is that so? Well, it is a pleasure to meet you, young Jesus.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
The high priest could see that Jesus was indeed a good, God-loving boy. He spotted the rope in Jesus' hand and inquired,
What's that you have there, my boy?
We have brought this lamb as a sacrifice for God.
The priest was very happy and received the gift graciously. Once they had handed over the lamb, Jesus' large family all began to pray in the great temple. At this holy time of year, they all prayed to God and promised to remain strong in their faith. They asked for God's holy blessing, for the good of their loved ones, and for a year without suffering. When they had finished offering their prayers, the big group of the family gathered to leave and make their way back to Nazareth. But the temple was very busy because of the festival of Passover. With their large group and the many other pilgrims making a big crowd in the temple, Joseph and Mary did not realize that young Jesus was not with them as they left. Jesus was such a smart and reliable boy that they assumed he was with them. He was very responsible and able to look after himself, so they trusted him greatly and did not think to look for him. Because of his early wisdom and the trust that they placed in him, Mary and Joseph and the rest of the family left Jerusalem, all while young Jesus was still in the temple. Jesus remained in prayer at the temple until the high priest spotted him. Confused why the boy was still there, but his family were nowhere to be seen.
Jesus, my boy, how come you are still here? I saw Joseph and Mary and the rest of your family leaving.
Jesus looked around, surprised.
I'm not sure. The temple is so busy, maybe they did not realize I was not with them when they left. I am sure they will come back for me when they do see that I am not with them.
The high priest offered Jesus to come sit with him and the other teachers of God. Jesus was very excited to be surrounded by people with such high knowledge of the Word of God. Instead of being shy, he immediately began to ask them questions.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
And so the young boy Jesus began to speak with the wise teachers. Instead of being annoyed by one so young, they were astonished by his great wisdom. Even at such a young age, Jesus listened to their discussions with great understanding and asked them complicated questions that demonstrated he had a true understanding and passion for the Word of God. Many hours passed, but both Jesus and the teachers were so deep in discussion that they hardly noticed the time passing. It was only after a day of traveling back from Jerusalem that Mary and Joseph noticed that they had not seen Jesus in quite some time.
Jesus, where are you?
Has anybody seen little Jesus?
The whole family began searching for him, and when they realized that he was not there, they knew that they had to go back and find him.
I think Jesus got left behind at the temple.
What do we do now?
It will take us another day to get back to Jerusalem, so we must be as quick as possible if we want to find him.
Let's go now.
And so the family made their way as fast as they could, all the way back to Jerusalem. They looked through the streets but could not find him, and decided to check again at the great temple. When they found Jesus, he was still sitting among the teachers, who were listening to him with great fascination. Joseph and Mary were surprised to see that the young boy was not nervous or shy, and that he was confidently engaged with the top teachers of all of God's servants.
Jesus, there you are. We're so sorry you got left behind, but we're here to get you. Are you all right?
Mother, Father, yes, I am very good. I have really enjoyed getting to talk to these teachers and learn more about the Word of God.
We were scared. We didn't know where you were.
You didn't know? Of course, I was in my Father's house.
By this, Jesus meant the home of God. His coming of age meant a realization of his true identity. When Jesus was born, angels proclaimed him as the Son of God. Now Jesus was claiming that identity for himself. The high priest told Mary and Joseph that Jesus was truly a special mind, and that he would grow up to do great things for God and his people. Joseph and Mary were proud of their boy Jesus, who would indeed grow up to change the world through the Word of God. Together, they all made their way back home. And that is the story of how Jesus was lost and Jesus was found. The end.